Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here, and you are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, let's talk about Supergirl. Anyone who knows me, anyone who's watched my back catalogue of videos, and I mean all of them, will know I've always had a concern and issues about the Supergirl TV show. I grew up falling in love with Helen Slater's irritation of Supergirl, the Supergirl movie. I don't care if that film flopped. I don't care if you don't like that film. I loved that film. I loved Helen's portrayal. After that film, when I first saw it, I walked around in a daze so in love with the Supergirl character and Helen's portrayal. So I loved that film. I don't care about the issues. I don't care if it hasn't really aged well. I love that film. And that's why I've been a big Supergirl fan. Obviously, my main man is Superman, but Supergirl's a great character. Even right, if you read her in like some comic stories as well, she's a great character, right? And she's interesting. And I've always felt that Supergirl, the TV show, kind of has flattered to deceive. It didn't ever really know what it wanted to be. It certainly wanted to do its part in representation and feminism and things like that. And with it being a female-led show, you understand that. But as usual with SJWs, and I hate calling them that, but unfortunately with SJWs, they think representation is all that's needed. They don't focus on the content. They don't flesh out their characters so we can like them. But despite all of that, Melissa Benoist as Kara and Supergirl is absolutely engaging. She's a great actor. I don't necessarily, I certainly wouldn't go and have drinks with her or anything, because at the end of the day, I don't approve of people who, I am a feminist. I support feminists, absolutely. Everyone should be treated and paid fairly, right? Absolutely, that's right. But I don't like anyone who kind of goes, supports one thing and goes against another thing. So supporting women, but then saying men are the cause of all the ills of the world. And I think she went on a rally and kind of said a couple of things that kind of triggered me, which is disappointing. She seems like a great girl. So it's been a bit of a disappointment for me, and I think I stopped watching properly in season 3. The first 2 seasons I watched. I think I really enjoyed the premiere, apart from, is it because she's a girl? That really annoyed me. But basically, the pilot is really good. And they do have some good episodes, but ultimately, the show just didn't work because you've got all these characters, but none of them have been fleshed out. I think David Harewood as John Jones is really good. I loved Wynn, and his exit really kind of convinced me that, no, I can't have this. And also the CW and Arrowverse seem to be wanting to take this into a female-dominated kind of a universe, and that doesn't interest me. Making statements, making political statements constantly doesn't interest me either. So the decision from me was, look, I'm not going to watch this show anymore. I love this character. I always loved what Helen did in the movie. But for me, this isn't a superhero show. It's just too obsessed with politics. So as they were more and more obsessed with politics, right, more and more people were stopping watching. They tried a lot of things. They sent Superman away so we don't focus on him. And they did all this in a crossover, which I've said many a times, which I found was hilarious. Oh, Supergirl's my favourite Kryptonian, do you remember all that in the crossover? It was pathetic. It didn't work. And now they've kind of tied themselves up in a knot, and they can't bring Superman back. Now, it's really amazing, really, because the past 2 episodes have actually saved this TV show because they had to. This is why they brought Lex Luthor in, because they were in so much trouble. But the irony shouldn't be lost on you or me that a male is saving a female-led TV show. The female lead hasn't been enough. People have stopped watching it. But now people are coming back. And they're giving this show kudos because it deserves kudos. Because in this week's Supergirl, was it called The House of L? Whatever it's called, it doesn't matter. I'll look for the title and I'll put it on my header. And when I post and link the video. But this episode is everything. Right, if this was the pilot of Supergirl, right, this show would have the maximum viewers that the CW could amass, right? It would get about 5-6 million viewers, and that's a lot for the CW, as we all know. This was an excellent episode. This episode did something this show has rarely done: produce a great script. Basically, they've adapted the Superman Red Sun, basically. So what they've done, instead of it being about Superman, it's about Supergirl. So in the show, because I haven't been watching this season, I basically watched the first Lex Luthor episode last week. But I think what happened was Supergirl was exposed to black kryptonite, and as in Smallville, this splits a Kryptonian. So basically, Supergirl was split in two. And the other version ends up in Russia, and Lex Luthor, while he's in jail, is alerted. So basically, the warden of that prison is his bitch, so he's allowed to go to Russia, and he meets her. Now, the only word she says is Alex, so obviously she's referring to Supergirl's sister. So she goes to Lex, He goes, I'm Lex. Alex, she goes, if you want, he goes. So they start training her, teaching her Russian, teaching her English, teaching her how to use her powers, because obviously Lex wants to use her for her own goals. And he's also lying to the Russians that he's going to help them for their purposes, but of course he is lying. Let me tell you something. Miss Tessmacher, I think, has been there since season 2. Now, Miss Tessmacher was in Superman the movie. She's played by a really, really good actor on the show. But the scripts they've given her since John Cryer's come in, you can see how good this young actor is. She's a brilliant Miss Tessmacher, and she can look kind of fragile, but she can also look very strong. It's a brilliant role. The guy playing Otis as well, wow. I mean, we all love Ned Beatty as Otis. This guy, I think, may go beyond what Ned Beatty did in Superman the movie and Superman 2. He's brilliant. All of a sudden, they're building something very special on this show. Now, the problem is with this, of course, and it isn't a problem to me, and probably not a problem to most people who are coming back to watch it. They've created a new Supergirl, because you know what I say? Dump the American version of Supergirl and keep this version. Melissa Benoist was absolutely fantastic. Whatever I think of her politics, anything else, she has proven what a wonderful, versatile actress she is. Basically, what I'm saying to you, right? Supergirl for the first 3.5 years has been absolute pants. And all of a sudden, Mr. Berlanti, Greg Berlanti, and his team have delivered something extremely special. This was like watching a pilot for a new era of Supergirl. An era where Alex doesn't matter and Lena kind of does matter because she's connected to Lex. And that relationship going forward will be very exciting. Personally, you don't really need Alex in this show anymore. They've actually made her irrelevant. And something else about Alex, because they kind of made her forget about who Kara is, she's become somewhat irrelevant. She's not... I know she's the sister and everyone's obsessed with the Danvers sisters thing, but for me, it's never really worked. I've never really bought it. I've never really believed it. But this works. You've got Lex. You've got Otis. You've got Miss Tessmacher. You've got this kind of Red Sun version of Supergirl. She's better. This is what's so hilarious about the whole thing. This version of Supergirl is everything we haven't had from the original Supergirl in 3.5 years. She has motives. She's learning. It's beautiful. This is what we should have got from the very beginning. What I'm saying to you is their original creative conceit just doesn't work for an audience. And this is why nobody's interested in this show. All of a sudden, we've got a backdoor pilot for a better version of Supergirl. This is brilliant. And Lex wearing the power suit. Look, John Cryer as Lex Luthor has to be made full-time next year. And he has to be in next year's, really anticipated crossover, right? He's got to be involved in that. And I'm kind of sniffing that he will be. He is now becoming... He's like... Because for me, Michael Rosenbaum will always be the greatest Lex Luthor. He will. But this guy... He's been given the script and he's been giving performances in the past 2 weeks that are really, really special because he's playing the Lex Luthor of the Superman era. So it's very different to what Michael did on Smallville. And as John said himself, Michael's performance was a character study on Lex Luthor and how he becomes the megalomaniac he becomes. And that's beautiful. And we can separate that. But what John's doing is something very different. Because when John was first cast, I always looked at his past performances and I'm thinking, well, he's always played a bit of a dweeb, if you like. But now he's asked to play this really, really strong character who needs big screen presence. And John is killing it. John and Melissa Benoist on screen together are beautiful. This Red Sun arc needs to stay. They need to get rid of everything else they've done right. Keep Lena, by all means, but get rid of everything else right. Everything else right. And you kind of have to keep Jimmy Olsen because now he's got this history. Him and Lex don't like each other. That's more interesting because this version of Jimmy Olsen or James, right, just doesn't work. I'm rewatching Smallville and I'm on season 6 with their own interpretation of Jimmy Olsen. Obviously, he wasn't the iconic Jimmy Olsen because they killed him off later on, and it ends up that his younger brother is actually the real Jimmy Olsen, which was kind of, they made that more age appropriate. But even the Jimmy Olsen we had in season 6 is more like the comics than the one we've got now. You know, this actor is very physically strong. He's just not Jimmy Olsen at all, and he calls himself James. I think he should call himself Jimmy, by the way. But you can never change what they've built in the past 3.5 years. But you can make him a more valuable character. Personally, I want to see Wim back. I don't know if that will happen. But I'm calling this week's episode of Supergirl a backdoor pilot to a better version of this character. This Red Sun version of Supergirl should be the lead of this show with Lex Luthor, her ultimate nemesis, because what they're doing here, they're building such a strong dynamic between, Lex Luthor and this version of Supergirl. It is so beautiful. I don't want to see this end. Because I'm not like saying, because Melissa's done this. Melissa and the writers have done this. They've created a stronger version of a character that we've been watching for 3.5 years. So bin her. It's not like you're binning Melissa. Melissa's doing it. Melissa's killing it, Brilliant. So I'm so excited because I haven't been excited for this show forever. This is brilliant because in one bloody episode, right, you created an awesome version of Supergirl, a better version of Supergirl, and she works. I am so excited. And Lex has got the power suit. Wow. And they killed it. This is just brilliant. This is brilliant. I'm a bitch. I've been complaining about this show for years. This is what people want. This is what comic book fans want. People who watch the shows. We don't want to see these shipper things. We want to see, real comic book stuff. And you gave it to us in one episode. Bravo. You've done it, right? And, and you can do your representation as well. Everyone who should have a fair shout and be treated equally. But this is how you do it. This works. This is beautiful, right? And the rest of the shit that you've been doing with Brainy and all the rest of it just doesn't work. And you know it. And this is why you brought in John Cryer as Lex Luthor to take over the rest of this season with this new version of Supergirl. You're killing it. Why couldn't you have given this to us from the very beginning? What a shame. So what I'm saying to you is, go watch Supergirl. Go watch Supergirl. But what I'm saying to you, Mr. Greg Berlanti, and I'm talking to you personally, I don't know you. You're, of course, superior to me. I'm just someone who loved Supergirl from the movie, and I've explained that. But this version of Supergirl you created, you've built something incredibly special. You must bin what you've done for the past 3.5 years and implement what you did in this week's episode. Please, because what you have started is something incredibly special.